All right, so we looked at social actions and responsibility, and now we're going to look at social relations and thinking about how do we relate to others, and those include things like attraction, conflict and prejudice, altruism and peacemaking, and aggression. So let's look at prejudice first. The way that you define it is an unjustifiable attitude towards a group of people. Usually involves our stereotyped beliefs, a generalized belief about a group of people. It can be something that's very overt, like you see up there with maybe white supremacist or whatever, or it can be more subtle. It's things like not hiring women, not hiring people, based on color, not hiring based on age. So it can be either very overt or it can be subtle. It doesn't matter. It's still prejudice. You can see prejudice over time is changing. This is just from until 1995, but would you vote for a woman president? That number has gone up and continues to go up, and I think we're sitting now in 2015 where Hillary Clinton was a serious contender in the last, two elections, and will probably throw her hat into the ring this election as well, possibly. So, that idea of would you vote for a woman president, it's become a reality. Is it just race? No, you've got, conflicts between Palestinians and Jews, country and city, mainland and island, men and women. But women have some things going for them, like which person, when it comes to relationships, would you want to be in a long-term relationship with? So think for a minute, would you choose A or B? So most people are going to pick B because people are attracted to feminine characteristics. It doesn't matter, either like women, men, that those feminine characteristics, people are attracted to them. So social inequalities, which is a principal reason behind prejudice, have this idea of in-group, like an us, people with whom one shares a common identity. An out-group is them, those perceived as different than one ins group. And then you usually have in-group bias, the tendency to favor one's own group. So we favor people who are our own age. We favor people who are our same race. We favor people who are our same gender. We perceive them, Scotland's famed Tartan Army, fans, again, fans in a sporting event, those people they're an in-group, and then everybody else is perceived as an out-group, and it doesn't matter how much trash you could talk about the other team, they still love their team. That's that in-group bias. You favor your own team. You also like to have a scapegoat theory. It's the theory that prejudice provides an outlet for anger by providing someone to blame. Probably the most famous example is the Holocaust, the Jews in the Holocaust. Hitler needed a scapegoat, therefore he blamed the Jews for all of these problems. So it's this theory that prejudice provides this outlet for our anger. Why is there prejudice? Why do we have it? One is categorization. That's human nature, that we want to categorize people into boxes. We try to fit them. We talked about schemas earlier in the year. We try to fit people into our schemas. You also have vivid cases, what's available to us, the availability heuristic, that our knowledge, like 9/11, that all Muslims are terrorists. That's not true. That's not even close to being true, but that vivid case stood out in people's minds. So you have these different kind of things. The knowledge that is available to you, and people who are uneducated have less knowledge available to them, so they rely on what they think they know. You also have in prejudice what's called the just world phenomenon, where obviously if you are the in-group, you consider yourself good, and that the idea that the good should be rewarded and that the bad should be punished. Again, that causes levels of prejudice. So the just world phenomenon believes the tendency of people to believe the world is just, and that people therefore get what they deserve and deserve what they get. And we'll talk more about this in class. I'll run you through a little thing where it shows you, do you have that kind of bias? How does the just world phenomenon, how does it explain bystanders' response to crimes that they witness? What role might hindsight play in people's belief in a just world? So think about those things. You also have, paired with that, aggression, physical or verbal behavior intended to hurt or destroy. In the U.S., we are much more likely to be murdered compared to most other developed nations. We are an aggressive nation. So that's kind of an interesting fact. fact. Biology of aggression, where does it come from? Genetics, neural influences, something about, we're talking about nature versus nurture over this course, and so the idea of biochemical testosterone, the more testosterone somebody has. Castration, if you fix male cats, they stay at home more, dogs become less aggressive. So there's been discussion, debate about, do we castrate like sexual offenders? Do we castrate, people who have committed, aggressive crimes? Injections of testosterone leads to increased aggression. So frustration aggressive principle, it's the blocking of an attempt to achieve some goal. It creates anger, which generates aggression. The goals can be like sports or work when you don't get what you want. In a relationship, in abusive relationships, when you are frustrated and you are not getting what you want, you take it out aggressively. When your body condition, when your body is not in the shape that you want it to be in, you take it out aggressively at the gym or whatever. But again, that frustration aggressive principle is the blocking of an attempt to achieve some goal, and so it creates this aggression or frustration. Also, hot weather. More crimes are committed in hot weather. The hotter it gets, the more aggressive we become. Murders and rapes per day, you see in Houston, Texas, how it goes up when the temperature goes up, and that's not an uncommon thing. That happens in South Carolina as well. Can we learn to be aggressive or gentle? They can be learned, but once learned, they are difficult to change. So once you teach someone to become aggressive, or once you teach them to be gentle, it is very difficult to change that. We acquire what's called social scripts. The media portrays social scripts and generates mental tapes in the minds of viewers. When confronted with new situations, individuals may rely on such social scripts. If social scripts are violent in nature, people may act them out. So the idea is that those social scripts are things that we see every day. We are what we repeated to do see. The idea that we do what we see over and over and over again. If you play aggressive video games, if you watch aggressive things on TV, you are going to naturally be a more aggressive person. And that's a huge debate. If you watch that, does it equal more aggression? By the time you are 18, you spend more time in front of TV than in school. 2/3 of all homes have 3 or more sets, average 51 hours a week of TV. By the time a child finishes elementary school, they have witnessed 8,000 murders and 100,000 acts of violence on TV. I mean, that's crazy. So over half of all deaths do not show the victim's pain. As TV watching has grown exponentially, violent behavior. So you have this strong positive correlation happening between the growth of TV watching and the growth of violent behavior. Do you think that TV has affected sexual aggression? Are people more sexually aggressive now because of the things that we watch and see on movies and TV? Conflict is perceived as an incompatibility of actions, goals, or ideas. So you have a social trap is a situation in which conflicting parties, each rationally pursuing their interests, become caught in mutually destructive behavior. So a social trap, right? So you have this rational kind of thing. You both maybe think you love each other, you want to be together, but together you're in this mutually destructive behavior where you just keep hurting each other over and over and over again. It can be in a relationship, it can be in a friendship where maybe you like each other, you're friends, you hang out, but when you get together, you get caught up in this mutually destructive behavior, this relationship that's not good for either one of you. It's a perceived incompatibility. You have sometimes it's called the prisoner's dilemma, where you have two people and you're looking at what are the best outcomes. The optimal outcome is that the person would both choose to the success story, like you both get $5. But say person B chooses to get the money and person B chooses to give it up. Well, then person B is going to get $10 and person A gets nothing. Makes sense? And then, for example, the prisoner's dilemma says, so again, if person A chooses it, they lose the money and person B gets it. And then if they both choose to give up the money, they don't get anything. We're going to talk more about this in class, but this idea of conflict is very big. This prisoner's dilemma. Do we choose as human beings? Do we choose what is mutually exclusive? Most of the time, the probable outcome is that you end up with nothing if you don't agree to work together. Enemy perceptions. People in conflict, we form these diabolical images of one another. So Saddam Hussein to George Bush would have been the wicked pharaoh, and George Bush to Saddam Hussein is evil. So we form these opinions of people based off of if they're our enemy. What about attraction? There are 5 factors of attraction, but we are going to talk about those next time. Make sure if you have any questions about conflict